There come Kingwa Lu Jova Tetome the best the check start more. Tetome Jivani, Shem Tetome, the Jen out any Niki, so Tetome by child, such a chimbutade. One Yamson, Yamis have with Jubadi, so come district new boy, Yopa, Tang, the Litera, the Saji Tomchike, Niji top. Chuji in the top, suggesting in Kakayomer Desone, that are now by Saji with them at the top soon. Dug Sambi top, Sancho young Tapa Yoga, simply something Pringles and Lodi, Dante Rema Yoga. The Vigibo top Saji Tamsi, this is just Saji Tamsi, get at it, Sancho Ho Yore, Sancho Ho Yore, the Vigibo top, Chuji in Jodo de la Yele Tapa, Saji simply in Kaka Maimba. Pena Parco de Zambuana, somebody, yet lam in Devini, so yet to buy it, lam each other, Devini charm, Chichuba, the Hakurutana, three goblin answering locally, Mjink, Lamako, Sosoke. Oh, there is a Tesson, Yore, things on young desert, in Yamsulana. Oh, that's also kind of machine, or that Tesson, the doctor, young Yore, Namis and Hadjubati, and it.
And we have said, once you have loosened the bonds, there is no doubt of release. So this word here, no doubt of release, that is very significant, a very important term. No doubt, what that refers to here is that, first of all, the one who explains the view of Mahamudra, the teacher, must be free of any doubts in their own experience, but also then through the explanation must convey it in a way that then also the person who is listening also becomes free of any doubts. And we ultimately become free of doubts through meditation practice, following the practice lineage of blessings. And as a result, we realize the view of Mahamudra. And so in general, like everything else in the Buddha's teachings, that is accomplished by virtue of three powers. And that is, number one, the power of your own intention, and that is, first you must have the intention to engage in practice in order to benefit sentient beings. That altruistic mind is the antidote to self-grasping. Then the second power is the power of all the Buddhas, all the compassion of all the Buddhas. And that is, so with your motivation, you're merging with the intention of all the Buddhas of the three times who have dedicated all their roots of virtue for the attainment of the enlightenment of all beings. And then the third power is that of Dharmadhatu, and that means on that level, on the ultimate level, Buddhas and sentient beings are not separate. The ultimate actual basis of mind is the same, and it is pure. In the Samantabhadra prayer, it says there is a single ground, but two paths and two fruitions. So the basis is the same. There's one ground, but still there is two different paths and two different results. At the same time, the ground, the basis, remains the same. And so if we understand that and engage in practice, then there is a sense of being free from doubts that arises that does not rely on anyone else's instructions or words, but it's something that, like a resolution that is free of any doubts that arises from your own personal experience. And so, for example, people like myself, who do not know very much, but also is free of any doubts. So that is practitioners like myself engage in practice, and for as long as we are free of any doubts, following the practice lineage of blessings, we will see the view of Mahamudra. So the crucial point here to do so, it says here, is that there is no doubt of release. So this word here, being free of doubt, that is most important here.
대들 샘지 남지 남카자서 조루 소문 샘지 남카자 오지 남카는 용지 이유리 즉 요미 딱지 타다자와 요지는 좀 종사요 말이지 매든 남카면나 이 구축했던 때 빼는 데꼬라자고 이제 동반지 감도 사요 말이 동반이면은 가는들이 구축요 말이 빼대다 에 정치인이 봤더니 데이터 동동을 가리 무권즈 봐서 의미즈 봐 이안 내가 내도 처와 담게들이 좀 왔다고 맨날 그러나 드린 조사 방나 가는 거 봐요 말이 나파 톡톡 요 데이터 저 선반 양설인데 배강내지나 대화도 동에 처와 강성하지 쳐달랍된들 항상 파도스고요 그래 제가 담는 거 말이 남니까 데이터를 하고는 생존하게 남카드하지 대하고 성들이 생각 내록 이제 내록 하고 살네 들이 혼대기 주 탐지 샘리성 성형 샘리성 통양 샘리동 샘리 탐도고요 그래 성형 동반이래서 통양 동반이래 탐도 저라들이 저고요 그래 배치다 들이 준단 말이 제일 맞으면 호대기가 예측기 봐도 동원도 고들이 고대 탐지 샘나데 샘랑그 샘나데 랑그 샘이 동반이는데 직경들 들이 나와는 그 샘지 라리 소비면은 송하는데 저따라 나와 탐지 랑그 샘이 도네 좀 사다다 측이 동다 딱딱하더니 석신 독신이 탐지 라리 소비면 타지한 거예요. 오 들이 양자고 라리 소비면은 마치가 직장만 없어들이 하고 해요.
In that way, the nature of mind is like space. There is no phenomenon not included therein. So that mind, that freed, released mind, that abides like space. And so there is two ways to understand that space-like nature. So for one is that it is space-like because it can neither said to be existing nor can it said to be non-existing. It transcends eternalism and nihilism. So we cannot say that it exists, it's there, because we cannot point at anything like with our fingers. But also we can say it's not there, it does not exist, because there is also great potential for like happening or appearance in space. So that is because of emptiness. Because there's empty space, anything can manifest. So for things to actually move and manifest, there needs to be space. If there would be no emptiness, if there would be no space, there would be simply no space for anything to happen or to move about. But because there is empty space, things can actually arise within that. And so that's one way. And then the second way to understand it is that when you realize the actual nature of the mind, then because you recognize there is the nature is, you can neither see it as something that is like substantially existing, a real thing, but also you do not hold onto it as non-existing, even insubstantial. And so based on that realization, then whatever arises doesn't move space, it does not affect space. So whatever happiness and suffering and hardship arises, it does not generate a feeling, it does not affect the space-like nature. It is just like you can throw like atomic bombs through the sky. The sky itself is unaffected by whatever moves through it. It remains as it is unchangingly. And so likewise, whatever arises on the outer level does not affect the nature of the mind, whether we call it happiness or suffering. But it is more perceived as a wave on water, and one just lets it come and go. So that is when you have understood the space-like nature of the mind. And so when you understand the space-like nature of the mind, when you really understand your true nature, the natural state, then nothing will affect you any longer. You have realized that everything arises from this very mind. All phenomena of samsara and nirvana arise from this mind, and they dissolve back into this mind. Or they arise out of emptiness and then dissolve back into emptiness, which is your own mind. So ultimately, samsara and nirvana have a single basis, and that basis is your own mind itself. And so everything arises from that basis of mind. In the 37 Bodhisattva practices, it says, the way things appear is one's own mind. From the beginning, mind's nature is free from the extremes of elaboration. So that is what we refer to. It refers to the practices of Mahamudra and Dzogchen and so on, but actually the essence of all that is actually included in the 37 Bodhisattva practices. So if you really grasp that, then you will see that actually there is nothing that we practice that would not be included in the 37 Bodhisattva practices.
Lüju sawa yong tong tavar do ngagar na bu mamang rachada yirma se la de chula tuso ning bo saja chuo nyamseni ba kamin tada lunga sawa tamchi gewa da me sawa tamchi tang yogone mena malare be saja chungbo gondu su lunga ge gebjor mabji je exo tele dino da saja chuo gun kana che ni mare de te lunga gebjo goari julang ka su goari Chulang tamchi gibjolo sebo yore, dawazi, dati hako, gombazi, jinshi bayo ba, jinchebi ba zon, jubazi, chunchi din sawa gangchi na sente ni mongdalo dreman di takchi dam. Tiri bayi, tiri gangchi toni shide bayo yinsu sanjiri son banani, yunga gibjo sen chulang go kato go, saja chi mo gombi tse luji sawa yong tong tawa doto, luki 누가 그기가 거쳐서 나가지 semchi 뭐지 루저서 아영도 다 도지 마그나도 뭔가 참 좋았어 나 제스 우리 이러면서 라드쳤더니 나또 탐치에다가 센들이 이만 메시지를 타지 라다들 타지 그럼 sem나도 센 싸우라고 하고 랑사데 하고 니리 이메시 저 타지 지정들이 내 저는 내서는 그식도 내가 사지 삼니 인사 배치를 오고래 랍다치버도 동침보에 타기도라면 태성장님 말해서.
And it says, give up physical activity altogether and sit idly. Without much verbal expression, speech is like an echo. Not pondering things in the mind, look at resolved truth. And so it is said that when we are actually practicing Mahamudra, we should let go of all physical and verbal activity, even if it is virtuous activity. Milarepa also said that when you practice Mahamudra, do not engage in virtuous activities of body and speech. That is only a practice with your mind. And so also we should not completely misunderstand that and think that if we meditate on Mahamudra, then there's nothing else that we need to do at all with body and speech ever. But this also is not implied. So this is when we are actually meditating in Mahamudra. But then there still is our day-to-day conduct, our activities, and at that time we do have to practice virtue with our body and speech. So first we need to understand the view. Once we have understood the view, we engage in practice. We meditate, and that means we sustain an ongoing state of mindfulness and awareness. And then conduct, our day-to-day conduct, is the time where we have to bring the experience gained in our meditation into our day-to-day conduct. We need to mix the experience with our conduct. And that is accomplished through sustaining conscientiousness, heedfulness. The Buddha also said that emptiness actually is equivalent with conscientiousness. So now, again, when we actually practice Mahamudra, at that time, we should not engage in other virtues, even activities of body and speech, like circumambulations or mantra recitation and so on, but should only look at the mind. And then looking at the mind, not pondering things in the mind, look at resolved truth. So here, when looking at the mind, you need to become free of doubts and to come to a decisive resolution that this is the natural state of my mind. So first you look at the mind, you clearly see its nature. Awareness clearly sees itself, and seeing itself, you know what you are seeing, so you resolve, you decide that this is it and nothing else. You're certain, you gain a certainty. So this can actually happen in the flash of an instant. For one moment, you just know that this really is the nature of the mind, that really is the Buddha. And so this resolved truth here, it means that you need to come to a decisive resolution, knowing that this is it without any doubt.
Lula Jimbo may be no daughter, send the language and the Samuel Deity, Ganja may but Lula Jaws. I little central, Sayamari, or that may daughter, she don't the Chivari, Tambuja, Nawa, the Gawa, Jatata, the Zegram Jimatabar is similarly that you make taxing about lawyer Gawa. The Bashum did it, the interbass, to the me, you, me, that's what. So, Taket, the Lord said, some tickums in giant, this and what the Irams send them now quick to some now called Taket on some area similar. So, Saton's young at daily, till Taket Matans. I know the thing on Yami, but Lord, Dang Yami, but. Tangene, so the Jimata Chigi, Timatans, Jagos of Gongos and a took by the house. To Titi money, Lang and Chinese, Don Chan, Dog Tansi on each other, but the Tansi, Jima, Don now around the chairs and Malawi, Long Tansi and Sesaba. The Richago, Tanya Mibal show, similar. They saw me in the sucking. Some ranch, telling the Gongo, some so they saw no, they go marriage.
Then it says, as the body has no substantial essence, it is like a bamboo reed. The mind, like the center of space, is beyond being an object of thought. Leave it loose in that state without releasing or placing. So the body has no substantial essence, like a bamboo reed. Is that when we look at the body, it is we identify with the body, and that is a confused perception. But the body, like everything else material, is impermanent. For example, it has the same nature as a flower or a fruit, for example. Actually, the process in those plants is the same. They're born, and then they grow old, and they get sick, and they also die. Exactly the same. Everything that is a compound is subject to disintegration, impermanent. And so then, rather than looking at the body, we should look at the mind. And then when you look at the mind cannot be understood as like an object. It is not an object of investigation. So through investigation, through the intellect, it cannot be understood. It is the moment the intellect comes in and we begin to think about it, we are already confused. We think it is this or it is that or it is here or there and things like that. And all of that is the intellect, the rational mind at work. And that is what ultimately must dissolve so that we see the natural state. So therefore do not grasp at anything, think about anything, and just rest in the space-like nature of the mind without investigating it, because space is not an object of investigation. So just rest in this state that is clear and empty like space without examining it. And then leave it loose in that state without releasing or placing. Releasing is here that you should not, without releasing, is that you should not release or you should not let go of clear awareness, clarity. Do not release clarity, and without placing is that you should remain in a spacious, relaxed state at ease without forcefully or deliberately making the mind be in place or stay still. So you stay in a natural, relaxed state without losing awareness. And then within that state, when mind has no focal point, that is MAHAMUDRA. So remaining within that state, then whatever experience arises, whatever experiences of bliss and so on, or whatever in our day-to-day activities, is seen as an illusory play and taken as the path. As Milarepa had said, whether you're walking, sitting, and so on, in whatever you do, whatever comes your way, you take it as the path. So that is, we need to merge the experience with our day-to-day conduct. So then letting the mind settle in a natural state is when the mind has no focal point. So when there is no focal point, the mind naturally rests in its natural state. And that means there is no deliberate effort of, I must meditate on this or that. There is no force. You're not pushing yourself to meditate. And so all deliberation has fallen apart. By habituating that, unsurpassed enlightenment will be attained. So unsurpassed enlightenment is the accomplishment of ultimate bodhicitta. And that is when ultimate bodhicitta is a state where all dualistic grasping has become purified entirely. So there is a non-dual state where self and others are not separate. And that is the state of the natural state of the mind, where there is no duality. So when we perceive a duality, then we refer to that mind as consciousness, or the rational consciousness. And when non-duality falls apart, when duality falls apart, when you rest in a non-dual state, then that mind is referred to as primordial wisdom, primordial awareness. So that state of primordial wisdom is a state where there is no dualistic perception, but still there is clear awareness. And it is called primordial wisdom because it has been always there since beginningless time, primordially, and wisdom as it is an awareness that knows all, that knows everything, the nature of all. And it is that awareness that is from which the Buddhas have arisen, non-dual awareness. So to understand it, we need to meditate. So you meditate, and by looking at your mind, you first understand that self and other do not actually exist separately. And then you practice this understanding. You gain experience, and finally you realize and attain enlightenment. So for as long as there is a duality, then that mind is consciousness, rational consciousness, and that consciousnness is the samsaric mind. And enlightenment is the state of non-dual primordial wisdom. Milarepa had said, I do not see consciousness, I just see primordial wisdom. And he said that because he said, I do not see sentient beings, I only see Buddhas. And he saw that because he saw his own mind. And seeing his own mind, he understood that that mind is the mind of all beings, and that mind itself is the Buddha. So by seeing your own mind, you understand non-dual primordial awareness. And then realize that although that is the natural state of all, sentient beings are holding on to a duality when actually they all are non-dual. So that is a song that you can find in Milarepa's spiritual songs. I encourage you to read these songs again and again because they are very meaningful when it comes to this understanding of Mahamudra. And so now this unsurpassed enlightenment again it refers to the state of non-dual primordial awareness. The state of enlightenment is a state where dualistic grasping is cleared away and awareness abides vastly like space.
pop amzetini tmai yomar semlo toz sangye yin yomar esi pang top trawa song te semdra ge usawa te den thona rubel lam mi sangye lam na sin o lam ga yin yomar ram semton da lam de ba sam te semro lam ga ba khwa je lam mare 그 샘들은 봐 사람 당부 이 장도 샘비는 정도 이 다소 당부 건도 된 바들이 도당부 된바 사람들은 봐 삼지 샘군 도당을 했나 네 짐리 송바에 돈이 이제 산낭시 봐라 사람들은 밤새리면서 이 샘 공격이 잡니 샘그 도당한테 사람을 만나자 답이 요구요래서 루블 람 사제 남나서니서 너는 sartong mami hakono te saje lamna sing simbares kela gomi kombe lam sanjo tobe 이 살도 검지 얼마 랑그 세고 내역들은 한대 잘마다 이는 검좀해와 내 고소거든요. 나는 이거 상식 들으란 거는 이지게요에서.
Without an object of reference, the mind's nature is clear. So, without an object of reference, also it means something like a goal, like an intention. Without any goal or intention, that is that generally we have an intention. We all wish to attain the state of enlightenment. But then actually it is nothing else but the natural state of your own mind. And so for this reason, actually there is nothing to remove from it. There is no stain that needs to be removed from it, and there is nothing new that needs to be obtained or added to it. The luminous nature of the mind is awakened as it is without having to remove anything or add anything to it. And when you see this nature, it says then, without a path to traverse, the Buddha's path is entered. So then that itself is the path. So when you see the luminous nature of mind, you see that there is no other path to traverse than this. We are talking about the different levels and the paths on the path of our practice, but then in reality these are not some kind of outer paths or roads to travel on, but actually it is a progression that happens only within one's own mind. And it begins with the stages of taking refuge and cultivating bodhicitta until we realize the relative truth, and then based on that we realize the ultimate truth. So it is a path of the mind. Milarepa also said that now what we refer to as the bhumis and the paths, the stages and the paths, is actually the practice where within the mind gradually the clarity of emptiness, the realization of emptiness becomes increasingly clear. So that like increasing a progressive a clarification of the mind, that is what we refer to as the stages and the paths. But actually it is something that only happens within the mind as we continue to meditate and practice. The mind becomes more and more clear, so we realize emptiness. So in brief, what it really ultimately refers to is to remain within the natural state that is clear and empty without grasping at anything whatsoever. And remaining within that state, you have already attained the path or entered the path of all the Buddhas. And then by habituating non-meditation, unsurpassed enlightenment will be attained. So that is that ultimately, so non-meditation is that ultimately there is nothing to be done, there is nothing new to cultivate or meditate on, aside from all that needs to be done is to remain and to sustain the abiding within the natural state of your own mind only. And only remaining within that state on an ongoing basis, that is the attainment of unsurpassed enlightenment.
Gutu tabi log chigo, the log chigo. Dan tricky tabi log and log by the Humuji, log by Kari, Jokari. Oh, Lord in Tasa Bumi, Contoya, Yoma, Chia, Lord Semi Mochiba, the Nagabe, Ragadan Mutan, the Tower Hakro. Lord by the Jerry, still doubling the truth of the log. Lord, you will never Hakron. The Tambian Tower sent to touch it. The Little Color days are to be. Just the Malatara, Chuntra Cassie, same with Chuntra, same down that our Dutch and Tama, I'm same with the Locacos, same with the Redeeming Mason. The new Zungzin could they keep out there. Woman answered because Benedict Ming come back and Tondina. The Jessica, oh, the Ming come back and the same than what the Motibares. You know, teach me double call. 3대 양탕에 니 요바들 딱 그저 산족수고 제들 파만 양탕도 파만 맞으러 나머지 그저 산족수 제 답나 들이 나디인데 총들을 넣었더니 들이 니니 행제 세배 받기나 들이 데르스기네 들이 운에 동담고 때봐 들이 설명 님해봐 선지 담았다 봐 담족에 뉴모 벌사원 담다 제는 오티 뉴모 번중을 했지 들이 대신 좀 보티 Dabalo marriage. Oh, the Kadani, Negi Tapa Paramargin, just Elon Sumani, theatre of the Zog doctor, Karen, sort of Zondi with the Tavit of age. The Zabata, Himbacham, we all married, Tongue, we already, that was Zondi with the Tavit of age.
So then next it says, to transcend all grasped at objects and grasping mind is the king of views. When there is no straying, that is the king of meditations. When there is no deliberate effort, that is the king of conduct. When there is neither expectation nor apprehension, the fruition is made manifest. So first, the king of views, the transcendence of grasped at objects and grasping mind, that is the ultimate view is to transcend the delineation between the inner perceiving mind and the outer perceived object. So there is no more boundary between them, because you have realized that they are non-dual. There's no grasping at them as an outer object. There is no outer and inner then. For example, previously we mentioned the example of a tree. To someone who has cleared away all dualistic grasping, they can understand that this is one big tree. No matter how many branches and leaves it has, it still is one tree connected to one trunk. And so likewise, no matter how many sentient beings there may be in the 3 planes of samsaric existence, the root of mind is the same. So in order to understand the nature of all phenomena, we need to inquire into the root of the mind, understand the nature of the mind. One example that exemplifies this well, that I came up with myself actually thinking about it, is that of light energy, like electricity. Everything in this world is powered by light, by energy, like all the machines and so on. Everything, all the activities are done with this energy. And it manifests in many different ways, but then ultimately there is only one light actually. And that essence of light we need to identify. And when you look at light, we can really understand non-duality, because it's clearly there, it is vivid, but it can also not be grasped. So that is just like the nature of the mind. It is vividly here, but cannot be grasped. It is like light. So in order to recognize the nature of the mind, therefore, we must resolve that all appearances are one's own mind. samsara and all of our activities, everything has a single basis. Whatever appears is nothing but the magical display of one's own mind itself. It is one's own mind's perception, no matter how extensive appearances might be. They are not separate. They are nothing else but the various projections of mind itself. So that is the king of views. So to put that king of views actually into practice, for example, now we are sitting in this room filled with people. Someone who understands the single basis, they will see this variety of people. At the same time, they know that there is only a single essence of mind. So first we understand that, and then we bring this back to mind over and over again. And for as long as we do perceive a duality, the main focus is to cultivate relative bodhicitta, which is to recognize all beings as your parents and so on. So if you seal your mind with the relative bodhicitta, then gradually self-grasping will collapse and great compassion, boundless compassion will grow. And when that arises, then naturally you will see the truth, how it really is, the natural state of your own mind that is non-dual. And then still seeing ordinary sentient beings engaging in afflicted and destructive conduct, you having seen the non-dual state of the mind, then you will recognize that this is just the fault of their afflictions. But their true nature, Buddha nature, always remains undefiled, flawless. It is they're just like ill in a way, crazed by their illness of the afflictions. But in reality, their true nature, Buddha nature, remains undefiled. And so then, knowing that, holding that king of views, so whatever you encounter, taste and touch and sound and so on, whatever you encounter, there is no grasping, no perception of a grasping mind that is grasping at a perceived object. That is seeing it in this way, transcending subject and object, that is the king of views.